मधुर मनोहर अतीव सुंदर ये सर्व विद्या की राजधानी राजधानी।
Well, this is seventh lecture in the series of basic concept of mechanics of metal forming. We would cover volumetric constancy equations, work done in stretching bar, the stresses in at the necking point, and some of the tutorial problems we would see to explain the mathematical aspect which has been discussed so far during the deliveries of basic concept. If you recall, the last time the necking condition while tensile test, if you look into this figure, this slide, which shows the necking specimen, especially at the necking stress, there are available the stresses. How do you calculate the stresses at the necking point? The analyses are available. We would discuss later those details, but if we take a cylinder like here, one can calculate the stresses at the necking in this fashion. One can see here that the axial stress, because of the axial stress in the z direction, one can see the nature of the tensile stress which is developed here. See, at the middle it is maximum, and when it comes back around the neck deepest point, it is almost minimum. One can see the z stress, and then the here is the radial stress minus the stress which is sigma 0, and the maximum stress is your sigma max that come across, and the mean stress similarly one can find out from this value. This is the mean stress. These all values can be calculated. When we would be discussing the instability problem in cylinders and all that later, we would see. Another thing which has been important, the volume constancy equation. As we have already assumed that the material is incompressible, and therefore the volumetric constancy equation holds. Let us see how one can find out the volumetric constancy equation. Let us start with a workpiece where the initial length from of L, breadth B and height H if it is, and it is changed after deformation, it is changed to say L0, B0 and H0, or reversal. Let us one can even assume as so let us have the initial as LBH, and finally that we can denote it F also, but let us take it as L0, B0 and H0 as the final after deformation. So one can find out the engineering strain L minus L0 by, and similarly the strain in direction 1, direction 2 and direction 3 can also be calculated in this manner. The volume constancy of the material, then it can be that the volume remains constant before the workpiece is deformed and after also as well. So LHB must be equal to L0, V0, H0, and if you substitute corresponding the true strain in the form of, if you substitute the true strain, so that can be 1 plus engineering strain 1, 1 plus engineering strain 2. So the same, if we take is that on the scale of the true strain, so it would be equal to 1 plus rho 1 plus 1 plus rho 2 plus 1 per epsilon 3, and that all multiplication must be equal to 1. And if we can take the natural log on both side of this, so one can see that the natural log of these would be additive, therefore it becomes equal to 0, and this gives rise to rho, that epsilon rho 1, 2 and 3 strains. So if this represents say your true strains, so that the true strains, it is additive in nature, or logarithmic strains are additive in nature, and it is equal to 0 under the volume constancy condition. So the strains, that is 1, 2 and 3, it is assumed that these are very small, and then one can very well write as strain 1, strain 2 plus strain 3 is equal to 0 in case it is very small. So this is the ability for infinitesimally small strains and for the finite deformation, so that the strains are assumed to be very natural strains. So under that condition, this equation is very popular in metal forming. Second thing is work done which is done during the plastic deformation. As last time explained, if you look at the stress strain curve, and let us assume that there is a bar of cross sectional area, initial area A, and length as L0, and if it is elongated to final length say L, so the work done because of this elongation can be carried out as W, and that would be the integral of the area under the section which is obtained from the stress strain curve, multiplied by stress and multiplied by say delta L. So delta L is the distance that is elongated. So the limit would be L0 to L in this case, and we are neglecting any elastic strain, as I have already explained that the elastic strains are very small, so it is always negligible and one can neglect it. And let the yield strength of the material, as this equation power law is well known, so yield is sigma 0 to the strain raised to power n. For this, so if you substitute this in the place of the stress, so one can find out the work done as area multiplied by this sigma 0 strain raised to the power n and then delta L, and so one can further manipulate the equations, and one can also write down to replace delta L multiplied and the other values in the form of volume, so that we can find out the work done per unit volume. So the volume of the body can be taken as the area multiplied by L0, and that remains constant during plastic deformation, and therefore the work done can be written as volume multiplied by the integral sigma 0 strain to the power n and d strain, and this can further be written as in this particular form, where the strain increment, that is d strain, that is the incremental strain, can also be written in this form, from the step, say if we start from the step n to step n plus 1, likewise we can have the strain increment, and other strain hardening laws that has been discussed earlier can also be used in place of the power law. For an example, if we use this particular strain hardening equation, like this is also a popular one, sigma f is equal to a under bracket b plus c strain and whole raised to power n. So in that case, if you replace this power law, in that case the equation of the work done would be volume divided by c n plus 1 and in bracket a and then b this equation. So this equation, likewise if you substitute other equation, you will find out accordingly. So there is a strain, later we can also use it as a strain hardening, can also be strain, and strain rate can also be added in this work done. So it is matter of a simple analysis only. As we have already seen earlier, the different properties of metals and alloys, and we listed last time that basically if we see the deep drying operation, one of the requirement of the material should be ductility, and this may lead quite ductile if it is at room temperature, but if you see the lead which is very ductile at room temperature, but the lead sheet is not that suitable for drying into cups in the way steel cups are drawn. So steel including stainless steel, the cupping is very popular, and so we can list the these properties like we have already seen: the yield strength or flow stress, ductility, strain hardening, strain rate hardening, sensitivity, effect of temperature, as well as strain hardening along with the strain rate altogether has also been seen on the yield strength and ductility. Another very important issue is the effect of hydrostatic pressure on yield strength and ductility. So if you look into the factors that affect yielding, basically in hot forming, including the metallurgical processes which takes place in hot forming, that may include, that is important to include strain hardening, recovery and recrystallization, etc. So all these factors affect the yield strength. The yield strength of the, therefore metals and alloys are affected mainly by four factors, such as the strain hardening, strain rate, temperature of metal and microstructure, and last one which is the hydrostatic. The effect of strain hardening, strain rate, temperature and microstructure we have already seen little bit, but the hydrostatic pressure is also very important, we would be looking into. If we see the strain hardening, we have already seen many equations earlier in the different forms of power law, which includes strain and the factor which is material dependent coefficient n. It is very important to find out the value of n. So as listed last time, the material, the method to determine n, we can start directly from the volume of the material. So one can write down the volume of the material as capital V, which is equal to the area of the and then the length, and then one can differentiate it. So dV comes out to be L dA plus A dL, and this plus this equation can further be manipulated, because the change in volume is always 0. So if we substitute we can find out this particular equation, and when there is a, and including the elasticity of the equation having F force. So one can write down this particular equation where the maximum force is there. So one can write down this equation under strain, incremental strain. So then the equation can be written, the same can be extended to two terms as the change with change in the incremental, that is the because of the incremental strain. And so the first change which will include the area change, and the another because of the stress change, one can then write down where A becomes your minus dA by d strain, and under that one can write down this particular equation which is popular: stress is equal to d sigma divided by d strain. And if we take the isotropic strain hardening according to the earlier equation, so one can substitute this value into the equation, and then by manipulating one can find out the value of n which is desired, and this comes out to be EU, which is your at the ultimate strain, the strain at the ultimate point that is responsible for necking. So this exponent n can be determined in this manner. Even for other strain hardening rules, if you apply the equations, you can substitute it and one can find out the value of n in terms of strain at ultimate point. There are many workers which have worked on this, and there are many one can find out by conducting many experiments and fitting into this curve, one can find out the value of n, which becomes useful for industry people. So another term which is the hydrostatic pressure, as explained, hydrostatic pressure may affect the following properties of metal, and hence their formability is affected. Bridgman experiment, as one can see in literature, have shown that hydrostatic pressure does not lead to plastic deformation, because it is equal from all the side in a fluid. As the hydrostatic pressure comes into fluid, so it is not responsible for any plastic deformation. However, the hydrostatic pressure increases the ductility, and therefore the formability of the metal and alloys are affected. This phenomenon of increased ductility with hydrostatic pressure is very popular, and it is called as the pressure induced ductility. One can see in this figure that the hydrostatic pressure, which is if versus the true strain, if you plot, so one can see here that the this is the lower yield in the tension because of the tension, and because of the compression yield strength one can see when it is around 0.1% offset, and this is around the 0.2% offset. One can see here that the true strain, the hydrostatic pressure, if you increase, it slightly increases, but the plastic deformation is not affected. Generally this figure is on the yielding of a quenched and tempered steel AISI 4330, and this guides again that there is little bit pressure on the true stress, but the stress which is responsible for plastic deformation, it is not affected. Therefore, another term, as I explained, the isotropy and anisotropy. Basically the tensile tests are carried out under isotropic condition, but materials may not be perfectly isotropic materials. So, under the anisotropic steel or metal, especially in the cold rolling of the sheet, the material develops anisotropy. So, the flow strength in the thickness direction becomes different to that of in the plane of the sheet. For testing the anisotropy, the test specimens are generally cut into an angle to the rolling direction, and let L1 and W1 as the width and length, and thickness T1 is be the length, etc. Undeformed of the undeformed thickness, and let after deformation it takes say L2 uh, so if after deformation the length is L2, W2 and T2 respectively, corresponding to the values after the final stage, suppose for the test which is conducted. So, one can calculate the three principal strengths in three directions as epsilon 1, epsilon length, epsilon width and epsilon thickness direction. So, for isotropic sheet, if the sheet is isotropic, that means the in the width direction and the thickness direction, these two strengths must be equal. However, in the cold rolling condition, what would be? These two would never be equal, because of the rolling the property gets changed. So, one can define an anisotropic ratio small r, which can be defined as epsilon W divided by epsilon T. So, this anisotropic ratio R can be used for evaluating, and one can utilize the value of to calculate R. The several tests can be carried out in 3 dimensions. Basically, for the sheet metal it is carried out at 45 degree and 90 degrees with respect to the rolling direction. So, the 3 values of R, that is, one can calculate R0, R45 and R90 are determined, and the difference, that is the delta R, the R value is it can be utilized as the indicator of planar anisotropy, which is defined in this figure. One can see in this figure where the along the x axis angle with the roll direction has been shown, and the value of R is plotted here. So, angle 0, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75 and 90 is taken as. One can see here that the delta R, which is can be calculated as the difference of a maximum and minimum, R maximum and R minimum, and after plotting these curve one can determine there is this is your delta R. So, because of the maximum is here at the lower around 1, and one can see it is 1.4 1.45 something as the maximum and 1.0 as is minimum. So, this shows the variation of R in different directions with respect to the rolling direction, and this can be used. So, this is popular with sheet forming, but another, so far whatever we have discussed, the basically whatever we have discussed so far, the plastic deformation, and that is the strain can be maybe the two very high strain generally we come across in bulk metal forming, but there is another situation of plastic deformation where we even can go very high, more than 200, more than 100, more than 1000 times the material can be deformed. So, that situation we call it as the superplasticity. So, this is the property. Under the superplasticity, one can say that a property of material that suffer neck free elongation. So, there is no necking in that case of the several 100%. For an example, in zinc 22, if you take zinc 22 and aluminum eutectide alloy, it is observed that an elongation of 2900% has been achieved in the range of temperature say 293 to 573 Kelvin. And in case of Fe26 chromium 015 6.5 nickel alloy, it has been observed that an elongation of more than 100 times may be achieved in this temperature, particularly in the temperature range of 973 to 1293 Kelvin. So, this shows that there are metals and alloys that can be deformed beyond imagination, beyond the limit. One can even think like a rubber like behavior. In fact, many metals and particularly this property in certain temperature range it happens in temperature range and with different grain sizes, this particular superplasticity can occur. So, superplasticity may also be achieved by thermal cycling across the phase transformation temperature, while the workpiece is kept stressed. It is continuously being stressed under high temperature. So, there are many developments and manufacturing, especially utensils and aerospace manufacturing, this superplasticity has been extensively used for, and however there are certain alloys only. If you design an alloy with respect to superplastic behavior, it is designed in a different manner. If we see the factors that are that is common to many superplastic metals and alloys, one can list three major factors. Number one, you require high value of strain rate exponent m, especially between 0.3 to 0.5. Secondly, the small grain size is required of the order of a very few micron, and thirdly, the last one is a very little work hardening. So, the material should not be work hardened, otherwise it will get fractured. And so, if these three properties we can employ in any alloy, we can use it very well for superplastic forming. Some of the manufacturing processes, like we call it as the thermoplastic materials, have been employed for forming metals in superplastic condition. For an example, the processes such as velo forming and vacuum forming have also been used to form superplastic alloys. Some of the manufacturing processes like lead based and nickel based are also developed. A large number of alloys, however, shows superplastic properties, but at different temperatures and grain size. So, one has to choose out of these two, the temperature range and the grain size. Different superplastic materials may be grouped into following three categories again based on these two characteristics. Number one, the low temperature alloy like zinc and aluminum. Secondly, the intermediate temperature alloy like aluminum, and thirdly the high temperature alloy like nickel. Some stainless steel and titanium alloys are also can be included in this category. So these are some of the issues which concern the basic concept of metal forming. So far what we have covered, the flow rules, equations, and then the basic engineering is stress, strain, and then true stresses and strain, and then the effect of various parameters on forming. So now let us see some of the tutorial problems to practice the situations of. So let us take the problem number 1, example 1, and where a mild steel rectangular specimen of length 100 mm is extended to 120 mm without elastic deformation, that is neglecting elastic deformation, and taking the material as isotropic, no doubt. So let us determine the true strain in the length, width, and thickness direction. So how to proceed? So we have to find out the 3 strains in the length direction, width direction, and thickness direction. So one can go for the true strain. Let us have the true strain. So true strain is logarithmic strain. So how to do that? So because the initial length and extension, that is 100 and 122 values are given. So in the thick length direction one can find out the epsilon L. So natural log 120 by 100, that comes out to be 0.1823. Similarly, because there is a volume change is 0, the volume constancy equations, so one can know from the previous analysis that we covered today that these strains in direction, length, width, and summation of these strains in thickness must be 0. So one can find out, because the material is isotropic given here. So one can find out that if you substitute the, so sigma w and epsilon w and epsilon t would be equal, and one can then calculate by this that sigma epsilon w and epsilon t is minus 0.09115, and therefore if you can substitute it here in this equation, volume constancy equation, and the 3 strains can be then find out which is along the length direction it is 0.1823 as determined earlier, and the other 2 strains are compressive, which is width direction and thickness direction, like this. So this shows that the direction which is stressed, that is tensile, the other 2 are to be compressive, and that gives the value negative therefore. So that true shows that the things are okay. Second, let us take the second example where we have to determine the true strain in the length, width, and thickness direction again for a sheet metal. Let us now take the sheet metal test specimen, which is elongated to around 130% of its original length. So and let us assume that the anisotropy value it is given as epsilon w by epsilon t as 1.5. So let us determine the percent decrease in the area of the cross section. So how to proceed? So you people can try with let us try with that, and we will see how the things goes on. You can show to me if it is the results. So the seed specimen is elongated to 130%, 130% of its original length. So what would be the longitudinal strain? The longitudinal strain would be in the length direction, and then natural log one can take. So 130% means if it is 100%, then it is stressed to 130. So you can find out the longitudinal strain. Let us see how anybody who got the answer. Yeah. So it comes out to be 0.2623. It's okay. And now if you apply the incompressibility condition, that is also volume constancy equation. So the summation of all the three strain must be equal to 0, and then you can calculate. One value is already given in the problem, where the anisotropy ratio R, small r, is given as 1.5. So using the incompressibility equation and this anisotropy ratio R, you can write down, and the volume, if you write the volume, so the volume which is equal to the area multiplied by the initial length, and if you take the differentiate, so the volume can be written in the two additive forms as the length increment and the area increment. So then you can substitute, because the volume remains same, so it is the change in volume must be equal to 0, and hence you can find out dA by A, which will be equal to minus dl by L, and thus you can find out the change in area of the cross section, which has been asked in this question. This has been to calculate the percentage decrease in area of cross section. So you can find out this has to be minus 30%. So this way you can find it out. Let us take another problem, which is a kind of derivation. You have to prove some value from a very basic equation, that is power law. So let us take this third problem, where for a strain hardening material that obeys power law, the problem is for this particular strain hardening material, sigma is equal to K and epsilon raised to the power n. Let us find out that, and let us prove that the value of n is equal to this given value, that is d sigma by d epsilon, and in 1, and it is on the denominator side is the stress divided by strain. So let us find out the value n. So how to proceed? So we have been given the power law. So how to proceed? So one can proceed with, yes, so one can proceed with differentiation. So if you differentiate this particular given power law on both sides, so one can find the value of K, which is a constant, and once you find the value of K in the above equation by simplification, one can find out the same equation which is to be proved. So it is very simple. Now why this example is taken? It has a meaning. Say there are many materials, one may have a many materials. For an example, if you take a AKDQ steel, if you take a dual phase steel, if you take 304 stainless steel, the yield strength of all these steels are different as it is listed in this table here. So the K value one can determine, it has been determined in this table like this in the increasing order, and then the strain, the initial strain which is there, it is the initial strain at zero stress when the material was not deformed, it is taken as this one. So the value of N can be determined, and then the strain at maximum stretching or the maximum strength, then one can find out the strain at maximum strength, one can see, you can find out. So this equation can be used. See here the difference of the stress and then the strain, incremental strain, and then the stress divided by strain. So one can use make a table by conducting experiment, one can find out the value of N. This is the other way of determining. Let us take fourth problem where one can determine in this particular problem, determine the percentage increase in yield strength of annealed aluminum bar if it is elongated from 200 mm to 250 mm say, and take the strain hardening data from this table. A table is given here, that is the value of the stress at zero strain, the value of K and N you can select from this table. So if you have 4 different materials like SAE 1020 cold roll 1, secondly SAE 1020 annealed 1, and 6061 T6 aluminum alloy cold roll, and the second the fourth one is 6061 T6 cold rolled aluminum alloy. So the stress at zero strain it is given. One can see for the cold rolled aluminum alloy it is minimum, it is 43, and the value of K and N are here given. So using this table let us calculate what is the percentage increase in the yield strength of the annealed aluminum bar. So you can choose. So how to proceed? How to proceed? So one can start with taking the yield strength of the annealed aluminum. One can take an equation which is there are many equations as explained earlier. So if one can take this particular equation, say if it is given as sigma F, that is the final at the (43) 1 plus 50 epsilon, and the N is 0.204. So the last one is taken into. So the now longitudinal strain as it is given in the problem, that it is elongated from 200 mm to 250 mm. So one can find out the engineering strain as 0.2231, and if you substitute this engineering strain into the equation, that is the sigma f, the new yield strength of the specimen can be found out, and if you substitute it here, this comes out to be 71.57 megapascal. So the without strain, the value has been 43. The flow stress or the of the material or the yield stress of the material without strain is given in the table as 43, but because of this strain from 200 mm to 250 mm, it can be then calculated as 71 points. So you see the stress increases, and similarly you can also if you put the value 0 here is strain, that is the yield strength at 0 plastic strain, you will get 43. So certainly because this will be 0, so it gets 43, and therefore what is the yield increase in the yield strength from the previous one? 0 is 43, when it is elongated to from 200 to 250, it is increased to 66.44%. So there is an increase in yield strength as 66.44, and that one can we have also seen in the discussion from the stress strain curve. So this shows an insight into the what happens to the yield strength. Let us take another problem, number 5th, where we have a cylindrical test specimen of diameter say 10 mm and having a gauge length as 50 mm and which is extended to 15 mm, from 10 mm to 15 mm. So let us determine the true strain. Certainly the elastic strain is to be very small, so one can neglect. If the ultimate strength occur at a force say 25,000 Newton with an extension of say 70 mm. So again second part is to be determined, the strain hardening exponent n, and then find out the ultimate strength of the material. Let us evaluate these things. So one can proceed with the true strain say at 65 mm extension. It is given in the problem, say it is true strain at 65 mm extension is given as natural log of 65 by 50, so that comes out to be 0.2623. And similarly you can also calculate strain into the equation, that is the sigma f, the new yield strength of the specimen can be found out, and if you substitute it here, this comes out to be 71.57 megapascal. So the without strain, the value has been 43. The flow stress or the of the material or the yield stress of the material without strain is given in the table as 43, but because of this strain from 200 mm to 250 mm, it can be then calculated as 71 points. So you see the stress increases, and similarly you can also if you put the value 0 here is strain, that is the yield strength at 0 plastic strain, you will get 43. So certainly because this will be 0, so it gets 43, and therefore what is the yield increase in the yield strength from the previous one? 0 is 43, when it is elongated to from 200 to 250, it is increased to 66.44%. So there is an increase in yield strength as 66.44, and that one can we have also seen in the discussion from the stress strain curve. So this shows an insight into the what happens to the yield strength. Let us take another problem, number 5th, where we have a cylindrical test specimen of diameter say 10 mm and having a gauge length as 50 mm and which is extended to 15 mm, from 10 mm to 15 mm. So, let us determine the true strain. Certainly the elastic strain is to be very small, so one can neglect. If the ultimate strength occur at a force say 25,000 Newton with an extension of say 70 mm. So, again second part is to be determined, the strain hardening exponent n, and then find out the ultimate strength of the material. Let us evaluate these things. So, one can proceed with the true strain say at 65 mm extension. It is given in the problem, say it is true strain at 65 mm extension is given as natural log of 65 by 50, so that comes out to be 0.2623. And similarly you can also calculate the true strain at 70 mm extension, that would be 0.3364. So, the value of n which is equal to 0.3364, and also the strain one can calculate, which is given, one can calculate the strain, that is natural log of L by L0, and that can be calculated from the area also, A0 by A natural log. Therefore, the area of the cross section at the maximum force can be calculated as this one, and one can calculate equal to 56.104 mm square. And then one can calculate the true ultimate strength, because in the problem the maximum force is given as 25,000 Newton. So, if you divide it by 56.104, that comes out to be 445.6 Newton per mm square. So, the ultimate tensile strength as given in the standard table is related to original area of the cross section, and for this particular example one can calculate then using in the curve that the ultimate tensile strength becomes this value, and it is calculated as 318.31. So, this is a good example of tensile test specimen where the strain hardening coefficient n is calculated and ultimate tensile strength of the material is also calculated. So, one can see the way it is calculated. Another interesting problem is, then let us see the 6th case, where the yield strength of a brass piece is given like this equation in the 301 plus 15 and epsilon, and n value is 0.3, that is in megapascal. So, a bar of this material having cross sectional area is given as 200 mm square, and initial length is 200 mm, which is extended to 250 mm say. So, determine the value of the yield strength of the material of the bar after extension, and also determine the work done during the elongation. That the work done equation we have already calculated earlier, So we would make use of those equations here. So how to proceed? So certainly the true longitudinal plastic strain can be calculated as epsilon L, and that is 0.223 one can calculate. Now using the already given equation in this problem, one can calculate the final, this if you substitute this true strain epsilon L in this equation, you can find out the stress, final stress as 466.15 megapascal. Okay. So because in the problem the work is given, because the work done is already given here, so the work done can be found out this particular equation which was earlier explained. We calculated the work done, so one can find out the this equation, volume divided by this, where the value of A, B, C is known to us, the value of A, B, C and N is known to us. Say A is 300, which is given here from the equation which is already given in the for the brass workpiece. Then B is also given from the format of the equation, that is 1, and C is given as 15 and N is also given as 0.3. So if you substitute, one can find out the work done as 3539.255 Newton meter. So this is how one can calculate the work done. These kind of work done is later utilized for designing requirement of energy for particular deformation and all that. It's a small method how to calculate the work done, and similar way later one can calculate the work done which can be directly linked with calculation of total energy, and based on that the motor can be selected, a proper motor is selected and for the particular machine. Let us take the last problem, which is seventh problem, another problem where an aluminum test piece of 100 mm long and 20 mm wide and 2 mm thickness is elongated to 130 mm. So let us assume that there is an anisotropy in this material. So if the anisotropy ratio is given as small r, let it to be 2. So how can we, let us determine the true strain in the length direction, width direction and thickness direction. So how to calculate? In this problem, the anisotropy ratio is given for the sheet metal of the aluminum workpiece. So as explained in this lecture in the beginning, the anisotropy ratio, which is the ratio of the true strain. So it is given in the problem that epsilon W and divided by epsilon T is equal to 2. So if you have the three strains as epsilon L, epsilon W and epsilon T along the three directions, and because the plastic deformation, because of the continuity equation, so the sum of the strains, these strains must be equal to 0, and from the given value of R, if you substitute, one can find out, and because of the condition that the thickness direction and length direction would be one would be the tensile and another would be compressive. So, and this should be equal however. So, these are equal, then it is value of 0.262 and therefore one can calculate the value of in the thickness direction as minus 0.0873. So, these equations clearly shows, this exercise, this tutorial clearly shows that the value of strains and this can further be extended if you use a equation which includes strain rate. So, there are equations available just like the power law you have. So, that includes strain rate. There are equations which includes in temperature also. So, if you use these equations of strain rate, temperature, one can further calculate these tutorial exercises. The list of book has already been given, one can refer to those equations and you can go again with these set of tutorials in using the effect of strain rate, temperature simultaneously and you can calculate. So, this guides a very insight into the basic forming which we would be using in subsequent lectures. So, so far we have not discussed the stresses and strain. Next time we would discuss what is the state of stress, what is state of strain and then how these stress and strain is related in the form of equations, that we would be discussing. I would like to thank you all for your patience and please these exercises, based on these you can evaluate your understanding. As I told you last time also, the on the website the questions are, objective questions are there, you can answer them and you can judge your understanding. Thank you for your patience. And again I would like to remind you, please do not forget to give your feedback so that we can improve upon our deliveries of all kind. Thank you very much.